Our story begins with a young boy named Oliver as he watches a video on his phone at night. When he gets up to close his bedroom door, we see that something is watching him through the phone, and we hear the creature panting ominously. Later that night, Oliver wakes up and gets a drink from the kitchen. When he gets back to his bed, he finds a new app on his phone called Misunderstood Monsters. He starts reading a story about a monster named Larry who is misunderstood and just wants a friend. While he reads, the lights start to flicker and then shut off one by one. He tries to use the light on his phone to peer into the dark, but can't see anything. He runs to shut the door, but it opens by itself. He shuts the door again, blocking it with toys, and then hides under his bedsheets, panicking. The door nudges against the toys and suddenly flings open. Oliver screams as he hears footsteps rushing toward him. Suddenly, the sheet is yanked away to reveal his mother, Sarah, trying to calm him. She hands him his phone so he can explain what happened. Oliver is autistic and nonverbal, and he uses his phone to communicate. He says something is in the house, but his mother assures him there's nothing to be afraid of. The next morning, Oliver's parents, Sarah and Marty, discuss what happened the night before, but they think it was just a bad dream. At school, a boy tells Oliver that there's something cool behind the school and encourages Oliver to check it out. But when Oliver gets there, he finds a group of bullies waiting for him. Something on Oliver's phone can see and hear what's happening. One of the bullies, a boy named Byron, throws the phone into the tall grass. Oliver searches for it without success. Later, his mother talks with Oliver's therapist, who suggests that Oliver would benefit from having some close friendships. She advises Sarah to help Oliver make some friends. That night, while Marty is at work at a parking lot, he finds a tablet in a box, making a knocking noise. Suddenly, the door flies open, blowing papers everywhere. Marty closes the door and starts to clean up, while outside, an invisible figure appears as papers blow against it in the wind. Marty brings the tablet home and gives it to Oliver, who takes it up to his room and starts playing with it. While he's playing with a selfie app, the camera momentarily picks up a face hidden in a dark closet. Oliver spins around in circles, looking for the face, and suddenly, it appears right behind him. When Oliver turns around, nothing is there. He runs from the room. The next morning, Oliver notices that his father is gone. He types into his tablet, "Is Dad gone?" And the tablet responds out loud, "Yes." Oliver types, "Who are you?" A few seconds later, the tablet replies, "I am Larry." And the Misunderstood Monsters app appears on screen. The tablet says, "Your parents want you to be normal. I just want to be your friend." His mother comes into the kitchen and tells Oliver that she invited some friends over for a sleepover that night. Oliver is still panic-stricken over the tablet talking to him. She interprets his reaction as nervousness about the sleepover. Oliver dashes from the room, throwing the tablet into a closet under the stairs. Later that night, Sarah answers the door and welcomes the 3 boys she's invited to sleep over. They're the same bullies from school, including Byron, who threw his phone into the grass. Oliver wrings his hands nervously at the prospect of spending all night with his bullies. Later, as the boys try to sleep, Oliver whimpers on the floor as he stares at the closet. The other boys complain and tell him to keep it down and wonder why he's staring at the closet. They guess that there might be a secret candy stash, and Byron decides to search the closet. Byron finds the tablet with the Misunderstood Monsters story on it and starts to read it aloud. Suddenly, the lights flicker and turn off one by one. Oliver whimpers and backs away, but Byron continues to read aloud. The story gets more bizarre the further they read. It says that Larry watches you through windows and needs you to finish the story in order to turn those windows into doors. Suddenly, the lights in the room burst and the boys start screaming. Sarah, sleeping upstairs, doesn't hear them. The boys hear a shuffling sound in the room, seeming to move around but don't see anything. Oliver picks up the tablet and turns on the camera. There seems to be a pale figure crouched on the ground. Oliver creeps closer to get a better look, and the other boys crowd around. Suddenly, the figure rises. Byron grabs the tablet, thinking the app is just a prank. He goes back to the story and flips through to the end. It says, "Will you be Larry's friend?" Byron tries to convince his friends that there's nothing really there, convinced it's all a hoax. The other boys shout and cry for him to stop, but he ignores them. Byron goes to the spot where they saw the monster and waves his arms around, telling them it was nothing. Suddenly, the table is pushed across the room, pinning Byron against the wall. The boys scream, and finally Sarah comes downstairs and rushes to help. Sarah calls the other boys' parents to have them picked up. She apologizes to them, not sure what could have happened. One of the boys claims it was Oliver, saying, "He's a freak." Inside, Sarah is upset with Oliver, saying he can't treat people that way if he wants friends. But then she sees that he's clearly traumatized by something, and she apologizes for pushing him into having the sleepover. The next day at school, two of the bullies look at Oliver as if he were to blame for the previous night's events. But Byron is absent. At home, Sarah fixes the broken lights in the living room. She notices the tablet and starts reading the story, and then sees the lights in the kitchen flickering. After repairing those lights, she comes back to the living room, only to find all of the lights suddenly working again. Afraid, she calls out to her husband, but gets no answer. She hears heavy footsteps walk across the room, but sees nothing. She goes to the kitchen to get a knife. She calls out, "Hello?" And suddenly, from the kitchen, the voice from the tablet answers, saying, "Hello." Then the tablet says out loud, "Say goodbye to Oliver." She covers the camera on the tablet with tape and shouts, "Stay away from my son. I won't let you hurt him." As Sarah runs away, the tablet says, "Not hurt. Take, take, take." All of the lights in the house start to flicker, and the heavy footsteps run through the room. Sarah rushes to school to get Oliver, saying she has a family emergency. She explains to Oliver that someone has been watching them at home and says they want to take Oliver. Her phone rings. It's Byron's mother. She says Byron has stopped talking. At Byron's house, his mother explains to Sarah that her son hasn't spoken since the sleepover. Suddenly, Byron says, "It was Larry." He says that Oliver didn't do anything wrong. He explains that Larry made the lights go out and that he could feel Larry's hands go around his neck. He says Larry tried to kill him and then repeats the words, "Larry just wants a friend." Back at home, Sarah quickly packs a bag so they can stay somewhere else. Oliver notices a light flickering from a dark room. When he goes to investigate, he finds his tablet with the misunderstood monster story on it. The door suddenly slams shut, and footsteps can be heard crossing the room, along with monstrous breathing. Oliver uses the camera to see what's happening. A hand creeps up from underneath the bed and puts a sponge on the bed, as if it's a gift. The hand waves Oliver forward. Sarah's voice calls out, and the lights come back on. The monster is gone. Sarah explains to Marty that something strange is happening at the house, and that something is after their son. Marty dismisses her concerns, thinking they're just exhausted. He offers to take Oliver to work with him. At the parking lot, Marty says they're going to have fun working together for the night. He says they can play games and watch videos together. He finds the tablet in Oliver's bag, with the misunderstood monster's story on it. Oliver starts whimpering immediately, but Marty tells him monsters aren't real, and there's nothing to be scared of. As he starts reading out loud, the lights outside suddenly go out. Marty says it happens all the time. He gets a tool bag from his truck and starts to work on the lights. Meanwhile, Oliver finds a laser that measures distances and starts to play with it. He points it at the surrounding buildings hundreds of feet away. But suddenly, something appears to be much closer. There's nothing to see in the empty lot, but the signal gets closer and closer until footsteps can be heard and a low growl. Now only a few feet away, Oliver takes out a sticky, stretchy toy and tries to see if it will stick to anything. He tries again, and it sticks to something invisible right in front of him. Suddenly, Marty appears behind him and brings him back to the small cabin. Marty tries to calm him down, saying there's nothing out there. Marty uses the camera on the tablet to show Oliver that there's nothing outside. But behind him, Oliver is lifted up in the air by the invisible being, his mouth covered, unable to move or cry out for help. Marty suddenly notices a reflection in the window and spins around, trying to rescue Oliver. He grabs Oliver and they run away. Back at Marty's apartment, the parents are now convinced that something is after Oliver and that it's somehow connected to the tablet. Oliver shows them a drawing, showing how Larry is in another world, but he's trying to get into our world. They need to destroy the window of Larry's world before it becomes a door. As they smash the tablet, Larry watches from the other side, growling ominously. The next day, Oliver's therapist tells Sarah that she thinks it's all in their imagination. She tries to convince Sarah that the threat is not real. At school, Byron asks Oliver if he's seen Larry again. Oliver shows him the sponge that Larry gave him, and then explains that his mom and dad broke Larry. The boys sit together and bond over a video. At work that night, Marty notices that his phone has the misunderstood monster's story on it. He skims through the story, which gets more and more threatening, saying Larry will stop at nothing until he has a new friend. Suddenly the lights go out. The entire lot goes dark, except for cars that flash their lights as the monster circles around outside. The doors to the cabin shut on their own, locking Marty inside. He hides under a desk as large footsteps can be heard outside. He uses his phone to see Larry pacing just outside the windows. A noise comes from inside the cabin, and Marty sees Larry right above him. He runs outside, jamming the door closed. He speeds away in his truck, but the lights on the road start to go out. He drops his phone, and when he finally finds it, he scans all around looking for Larry, who is sitting right next to him. Back at the apartment, Sarah gets a call that Marty has been in an accident and rushed to the hospital. But the call is interrupted by a growling sound. Sarah throws the phone and goes back inside to find the television and all the lights on. She tries to turn the TV off, but it starts flicking through channels, delivering a message. He will follow you until you finish the story. Sarah asks why Larry is doing this. The TV says that Larry is lonely. Finish the story, it says, and flicks through the story quickly. The story ends with the words, "When your hand meets his, Larry can never let go." The end. Sarah rips the TV off the wall and smashes it on the ground outside, and then does the same with all of the other screens in the house. As all of the lights in the house flicker, Oliver spins around screaming. Sarah screams for him to be normal, and the lights all go out. She apologizes to Oliver, saying she didn't mean to say that. They go outside to make their escape, but all of the streetlights go out. Suddenly, a hand rises up from one of the broken screens on the ground. Sarah and Oliver rush back inside to hide, and Larry appears in the doorway behind them. As Larry walks through the house looking for them, Sarah and Oliver sneak past him, going upstairs to hide under a bed. As Larry's footsteps get louder, Oliver starts to whimper nervously, and Sarah tries desperately to calm him. Larry walks through the bedroom, croaking in a scary voice. Suddenly, Larry finds them under the bed. Sarah and Oliver run out of the house screaming until they find themselves in the middle of a field. Sarah says there's no electricity there, so Larry can't get to them. She thinks they're saved, but suddenly a phone lights up in the grass. It's Oliver's phone that the bullies threw there days ago. Larry suddenly pops up in the tall grass and starts chasing them. Oliver and Sarah get separated in the chase, and Larry suddenly grabs the boy by his feet and drags him through the field. He takes Oliver into the woods. Then he releases the boy and stretches out his hand for Oliver to take, saying, "Friends?" Just as Oliver is about to take Larry's hand, Sarah appears and puts her hand into Larry's. Larry screams, and then she tells Oliver she loves him. As Larry's hand closes on hers, her smile freezes. Her face turns gray, and her mouth and eyes open wide in horror. Larry yanks her away and pulls her back into the phone, into his world. Oliver runs after them, but it's too late. She's gone. Later, with his therapist, Oliver writes a note that says, "Mom loves me," and he sounds the words out loud. The therapist tells Marty that Oliver's speech is improving and he seems to be doing better. She says that she hopes that they find Sarah. At school, Oliver and Byron make a pledge to stay friends. That night, Oliver's lights start to flicker. He gets out of bed and goes downstairs. Marty wakes up to the sound of laughter. As he quietly walks down the stairs, he sees Oliver spinning around in midair in the living room. Marty takes out his phone and sees Sarah holding Oliver, spinning him around. The mother and son laugh together, and Sarah whispers, "I'll protect you." And this is where our story ends. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a single scary movie recap. And if you have a horror movie you'd like us to recap, just leave a comment and we'll get right to it.